Democratic Supercommittee member Chris Van Hollen says it is still unclear if the committee will be able to cut more than $1 trillion by its Thanksgiving deadline. Now, if it cannot do that, more than $1 trillion in cuts will be made for them, including $500 billion from defense. All of this over the next 10 years. That's something my next guest does not want to see happen. Buck McKeon is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. But, Mr. Chairman, it is looking increasingly like those automatic triggers would go into effect as things stand now, right?
Well, I sure hope not. You know, as we went through the budget process earlier this year, we voted for this debt reduction plan, and people were saying everything had to be on the table. So defense stepped up, and they have cut $465 billion out of defense over the next 10 years off of last year's request for defense. And I just want people to understand that that is a very, very substantial cut. And we're working now to translate that into what it will mean as far as how many troops we're going to have to take out of end strength, what we're going to lose in the way of equipment and training and all the other things that go into our military.
But, you know, I know we use these terms cuts, you know, very aggressively, and I know you're against any trimming at this point and in this time. But I guess what and I will let you answer that, but I do want to get a sense of, we're really talking about slowing the growth in government, including defense, and your points and arguments for defense are well taken. But I could talk to just as many Democrats, sir, who feel that anything on any of the entitlements or reining in their growth will be just as destructive. Can the two sides ever come to agreement on what that middle ground would be?
First of all, let me say I am not opposed to cutting defense. I think it had to be on the table. But I think we've gone over and above what most of us think are prudent cuts.
In other words, the $400+ billion already agreed to is more than enough, no more than that.
That's right.
Okay. So where would you go?
Where would I go?
Where would you trim cuts? Where would you be looking for more spending restraint then, leaving defense off the table?
Well, you know, we have 12 people that have that responsibility. My job is to look after the defense of our nation, right, to make sure that our troops have the things they need to carry out their missions and return home safely. And I take that very seriously. Out of a budget the size of our military budget, obviously we can find ways to save, and we've done that. What I'm saying is, when you cut out, this is more than just slowing the growth rate. These are actual cuts, and if you year over year, and once people find out how serious those cuts are. You know, when we voted for this, what we said was we will take out of discretionary spending almost $1 trillion. We've done that. But we could cut the whole discretionary budget. We could eliminate all defense spending, all other spending that we vote on every year, and we would still be running about a $500 billion deficit. If we do not address the entitlements, if we do not work to reform Social Security and Medicare, then all of this other is for naught, because we will continue to run deficits and we will not solve what the real problem is. And the people who are depending on Social Security and Medicare into the future will all be left without those programs anyway. I understand that,
but you do have this sort of gauntlet, right, that hangs here, where the super committee can't come to an agreement or can't go beyond its own committee. These automatic triggers kick in. Would there be a move, or would you be for a move that some of your colleagues have talked about, making sure those triggers don't kick in? That would involve changing what were the ground rules in the first place.
I would be looking for anything that stops those triggers kicking in, because if that happens, that's another $500 billion out of defense over the next 10 years. We will revert back to less spending for the military at any time prior to World War II. Our Navy is already the smallest it's been since World War I, and we're talking about taking 200,000 out of end strength of the military. We're talking about eliminating 2 carrier task forces. We're talking about some very extreme cuts to the defense of our nation.
All right, Chairman, well, that's close. Getting kind of close to this deadline here. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Neil.